Um, so yeah, like for you, and I feel like I've asked you this before, but who, like, give me your top 5 favorite characters, and then, like, who do you think are, I guess, more objectively the best characters, like, in the series? I mean, I feel like Luffy's gotta be up there for you. I mean, he's well, Luffy doesn't really count because he's, like, he's in everyone's top 5. Like, I guess I'm asking, like, your favorite characters, like, no matter what, like, any criteria you can imagine, whether, like, literally anything, but then also, like, I guess the best written characters, because I do think that it's 'cause let's call a spade here, right? Like, it's a shonen manga. It's not like an epic fantasy series or something where characters change over time, right? They're gonna be the same characters in any given circumstance. Like, Luffy's always gonna help people, he's always gonna want food, but I do think there's characters in there in the series that, like, kinda change that a little bit, or at least like, you know, struggle a little bit more with the consistency of their agency than other characters. Like, Luffy's always gonna be the same, Zoro's always gonna be the same, Sanji's always gonna get a nosebleed, right? But, like, I guess Garp, for instance, right? So he had to deal with this huge dilemma of, like, well, does he, with Ace's execution, right? Like, he only knew the Marines, he only cared about the Marines to some capacity, right? He didn't want to serve the Celestial Dragons or anything and didn't do his job half the time. But, like, he had to deal with and confront the idea that his adopted son was going to die, and he had the power to do something about it. But in the end, he chose not to. And you can argue that he did a little bit, right? Because he let Luffy, punch him and get past him. He pretended to, like, put up a fight, but, like, he had to really struggle with that, I think. Like, you saw it with Garp, and, even when he let the Don, like, beat the heck out of him, when he went back to Windmill Village. So I guess, like, that is what I'm talking about. Like, great characters like that. Like, I think Garp is an excellent character as far as one can go in a shonen manga. You're deaf on the Garp train lately. Well, dude, he's the goat, dude. I mean, I know you're not there yet, but just wait till you see, like, what Garp can do. I mean, in terms of, like, power scaling, like, he's everybody knew that Garp was OP, right? Like, he went toe to toe with Roger, which, you know, could be taken with a grain of salt, because it's like, he used to corner Roger and they nearly almost killed each other, like, multiple times. It's like, okay, but what does that mean exactly? Because when everything's all said and done, right? Like, if it's like, let's say we're reading about Luffy the same way we kind of read about Roger in the past. It's like, well, Smoker beat the shit out of Luffy. But we know, like, seeing the story, like, live, if you will, like, well, Luffy was underpowered and Smoker was, you know, one of the first Logias he ran into. So of course, like, he's gonna lose to Smoker. But if you look at it in hindsight, like, from a future perspective, it's like, oh no, like, Smoker cornered Luffy, right? But we don't look at Smoker and Luffy the same way we look at Garp and Roger. So, but obviously Garp has shown his, like, martial prowess. Like, he's definitely a goat. So I guess like another question too, Steve, would be like, what are things in the series that you wish you could see more of? Garp seems to be a man of code. His justice, I assume, happens to be on the opposite end of Luffy and Ace's. Yeah, there's a mix of that, I think, because we don't really get to see too much of Ace's justice. We do a little bit. Um, yeah, like they all have their own forms of justice, I guess. Like, Luffy, like, first of all, don't ever give Luffy food because I swear every single arc, someone gives Luffy food, and then that person gets like screwed over in a way, and then Luffy's like, You beat up someone who gave me food," you know? Like it happens every time. And so he always like avenges that person who gave him food that was wronged by some like higher, authority or something like that. He avenges, which isn't the same as vengeance. I feel like Ace was a little more vengeful, like in Wano when he's talking to Yamato, and like he wanted like vengeance, like he wanted like there was something a little darker that he had than like Luffy does when he goes after somebody. Same with when like Ace kind of met Whitebeard too, you know. But yeah, what do you want to see more of? You wanted more Whitebeard? Yeah, I think everybody did. I mean, because we see him briefly. I believe it's like in the middle. The first time we see him is in the middle of the Skypiea arc, I think, where Shanks meets Whitebeard and warns him that Ace shouldn't go after Blackbeard. Um, and we get to see, like, I don't know, just how crazy he is. And then, of course, in Marineford, like, Marineford was just like a powerhouse showcase. It was so dope, though. Like, Marineford is like one of my favorite arcs of like anything of all time. And I feel like saying like, Marineford's like one of your favorite arcs is like saying Luffy's one of your favorite characters. It's like, well, no duh. But I wanted to see I too wanted to see more Whitebeard. And you get to see well, we get to see a little bit more of him in like flashback as the story progresses, obviously. Um, but never like his main, I guess, come up or trials and tribulations. There's like a brief panel or scene in the anime where we get to see him as like an orphan, like all tattered and has like a stick that you know he obviously uses to fight. And I feel like also for me too, and everyone has said this, I want to see more sword stuff. Like we get introduced to like the 50 like I don't know, fair swords, like the 21 good swords and then like the 12 great swords, like Mihawk has one of them, Whitebeard had one of them, the top great blades, I guess I should say. What's his name? Samurai Gandhi from the Gorosei. I can't think of his name right now. He for sure has one. I don't know if it was confirmed or not. I don't remember, but I want to see more sword stuff. Like, how are these swords made? And I'm wondering too, because you're in Wano right now. Like Zoro has Enma's black blade, you know, or Odin's black blade Enma, and Mihawk has a black blade. And everyone in the community is wondering how to make a black blade, and it can't be something so simple as like, oh, just pour a bunch of hockey into it and it turns into a black blade. So I'm really curious about that. How do you think black blades are made, Steve? Do they ever get into how these blades are made? Like just in general or like black blades? Um, Not really. I mean, in Wano, we the top tier blades. Well, in Wano, we get introduced to someone who, so the same guy who made, I think this is true. The same guy who made the Wado Ichimonji, which is like Zoro's like white sword that he got from Kuina, was made by the same person who made Enma and the other sword, like the Heaven Splitter that Momo has, like the one with like the white scabbard. It doesn't go into like how they were made, just kind of like who made them. I'm assuming like Oda's going to take real world inspiration from the, I think Katetsu blades are a real thing. Pull it down a little more. Well, here I could also just like sit up straight too. How's that? Is that better? Too much ceiling and too much ceiling and stuff. Okay, hold on. Like that. That's good or better, I guess. Okay, cool. But yeah, I don't know. I am expecting. Well, like let's take a look here. We have Mihawk's Black Blade, Yoru, and we have Odin's Black Blade, Enma, and I I think what they at least both have in common is that they both have Conqueror's Hockey, right? So, and Zoro has Conqueror's Hockey. Um, so I wonder if it has something to do with that because I refuse to believe to make a black blade that you just put a bunch of armament hockey into it because it doesn't make sense because Shanks's Griffin doesn't have isn't a black blade and that dude uses hella armament hockey. But then again, I guess to kind of counteract my own point, he also has immense conquerors hockey. So I don't know why his wouldn't be a black blade if conquerors or any form of hockey was all it took. Like I just don't know. It's like one of the great mysteries, and I feel like we're not going to find out until like literally Zoro's fight with Mihawk. Like I would like to think that 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 Zoro will have a black blade before he fights Mihawk. Or I could easily see it being like, he beats Mihawk and then all of a sudden like, well, now you have the skills and the temperament to make a black blade because you've beaten the strongest swordsman in the world. But I don't know. I feel like I want him to have it for his Mihawk fight. But I could see it going both ways is the thing. Yeah, um I think it's guaranteed that Zoro has to have a black blade. Like and I feel like and maybe all three of them will be, like all three of his swords, but I think at the very least the sword that he got from Koina, the Wado Ichimonji, for sure has to turn into a black blade by the end of the series. Like there's just too much surrounding it that makes me think that it has to be like we have Mihawk's Black Blade, which we saw at the very beginning in Baratier, and Zoro now has his own Black Blade that obviously he didn't turn black, but like with um Odin's sword. So I feel like it has to happen. I just thought all the Black Blades already exist and he may get his hands on one or some. I didn't think new Black Blades could come into existence. I feel like they can. Like, so you think that they were made like as Black Blades? Like they were, straight out of the forge, like Black Blades? I think they for sure have to be like the wielder has to turn it into a Black Blade. Like I think that's the only way. I just don't know how. I don't know like what other theories are going on with how to make a Black Blade, but could have been from a specific blacksmith that made these perfect blades, or made from a rare material that heightens a conduit ability with the user in their hockey slash abilities. I mean, I guess it's not out of the realm of possibility, but then also, if that was the case, the blacksmith or whatever would be the one like creating the black blades. Like, you know what I mean? Like I feel like it has to do something with will, like into hockey to some degree, but I don't think it's simply just like manifesting your hockey or like just constantly pouring your hockey into an object. It kind of, and I know you haven't seen it, Steve, but it reminds me of like Nen in Hunter x Hunter, where they can imbue objects with Nen, or like the magic system that is Nen in the series, that can do different things. Um, so black blades come from like a transformation of a pre-existing blade. That's what I think. I mean, I don't think like Mihawk, for example. I don't think Yoru started out as a black blade. I think it was just like a regular blade. I mean, it's the craziest regular blade ever, right? Because like that sword is insane. But I think it was turned into one through Mihawk's, I don't know, whatever metamorphosis needs to take place. He did it. And I think it makes it all the more likely because, Mihawk is titled the world's strongest swordsman. So, but then again, I'm like, well, yeah, Shanks is a crazy swordsman, so why doesn't he have a black blade? Like, I think Mihawk and Shanks are comparable in sword skill, and I think just kind of comparable in general. I think, I mean, it's kind of a hot take. I feel like to not say one is stronger than the other. Maybe it's not, but usually people always are like, no, Shanks washes Mihawk or Mihawk washes Shanks. I don't know. People power scale weird in the community. Like I think people think too linearly in terms of like power scaling in the community. Like people look at it as a one of one, your gut would say Shanks. I would lean towards it, but here's how I power scale. Like, I think I look at matchups in terms of like flipping a coin. Like you don't flip a coin just once, right? Like the more you flip a coin, I guess, the more um the probabilities even out, right? But and I guess that's might be a bad example, but like for instance, I don't think Shanks beats Mihawk 100 fights out of 100 fights. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like Mihawk gets a win in there somewhere 'cause it's almost just like when you're dealing with high tier characters too, it's almost like if you think about, an Olympic 100, meter dash, right? Where the winner is decided by, like, milliseconds, which just means if you just swing your arm wrong, like, one time, you're losing that millisecond, right? So, that's all to say that the smallest mistake could lead to your defeat or um and that could lead to someone else's victory. So I feel like the same goes with high tier fighters in really anything, right? Like even UFC or MMA. So I feel like all it takes is just one tiny little mistake from either Shanks or Mihawk for the other one to see that opening and take advantage of it and secure the victory. So I feel like would I bet Shanks beats Mihawk more often than not? Yes. But do I think Mihawk gets some licks in there and gets a few dubs of his own? Also, yes. But, like, I feel like people just do, like, a one of one fight when they power scale, which I don't know why. It's not like anybody ever dies in One Piece, so but alright, dude. I have to wrap this up and go to work. I appreciate you stopping by. I'm definitely gonna try to, like, do this kind of on the daily, kind of establish a little rapport, create a schedule. So I'll probably be doing this again tomorrow. But I really do appreciate you stopping by and talking with me. So I'm sure I'll talk to you here soon, Steve. Yeah, we'll do. All right, later, man.